they own like Comcast in New England and different places and stuff going on there. But anyway, so he, all right, so I will, try to get everything. We are unmuted, just so you know. Hi, Linda. Hello? Oh, can you see the audio still?
Is Jody still here?
No, she left.
Hello, Linda?
Hello, can you hear me now? Pardon?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
awesome. Thank you.
So Linda, if you're having trouble hearing,
Oh, I see her on the thing.
You're right.
just
You're loud
hearing
and clear right now.
wonderful.
You're
I'm
perfect
saying,
right now.
I'm more concerned about the audio, the quality of the feed with the internet. We've had some issues. None are expected, but just in case, we'll work out an alternate way for you to call in if we need to. Just text Lynn or myself.
Okay,
Because I think the issue's been with the internet, not with like the actual phone system.
okay.
Yeah, but hopefully we're good. I don't know what we do. But okay, thanks, Linda.
Thank you.
Cause he's worried about getting out of the meeting and driving to Cheyenne. He has to be there at 9 o'clock for the resolution committee, which none of us do. The first thing really we're gonna be doing there is like 5. Yeah. But you gotta check in by 5, or register by 5, I noticed. Have to. Well, either that or you have to search Cheyenne for that lady, you know what I mean? That's the problem getting into and stuff like that. They said, registration for, was from 11 to 5. Okay, so we'll be there at 6. At what? 6.
She might be able to.
I'll ask where you'll be able to register at then. Okay. And you might just text me tomorrow. I'll let you know. And then that way I'll remember. Yeah. I'll ask them where you would go to register later. Okay. Or I might be able to, or they might let me register. Yeah. Okay. Appreciate it. All right. So, going over that again. How's it going? How are you? Good.
We're ordering longer ones, so we won't have an issue in the future. They'll be like 6 inches longer.
Did you say Jody was going to Cheyenne also? She does, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Probably not, well, something like that, yes. And then you go to WAM tomorrow, or, I mean, that's this week, right?
Yeah.
And then, Chris, you're going as well? Are you going? You're going, okay.
Is there?
No, there's not.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And I had kind of forgotten about this, so I was gonna invite people to go, but sure.
Well, and, I always, yeah, let us know.
That'd be fine, basically, I think if we just all kick in 25, it'll be perfect.
25, okay.
I don't know what that is. I've heard of it on the TV and stuff, but I don't know what it is.
You take a bit going. All right. Are we all ready? Yep. All righty. I will call this meeting to order. It is 6:01. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic
To the republic who stands
under God,
under God, indivisible.
Thank you. Next thing on the agenda is roll call, please.
Mayor Terry Wyckoff,
Present?
Vice Mayor Jacqueline Wells. Here. Councilmember Aaron Durst,
Here?
Councilmember Darrell Gardner,
Here.
Councilmember Jabari Martinez, Councilmember Smith,
Here by Zoom.
and Councilmember Chris Weisenberg.
Here. All right, the next thing on the agenda is I will open a public hearing, concerning the, City of Rawlins retail license, liquor license number 99. Is there anybody here that would like to speak at this point to this, subject? Hearing, go ahead.
If I may just do a tiny introduction, if that's all right, if that's the time for right now. Or is it?
I think this is public hearing part.
Excuse me.
So hearing none, I will, close the, okay, yes, sir?
Mayor White, and members of the council, since this is designated as a public hearing, I wanted to see whether anybody was going to speak. I am here on behalf of Candy Mountain LLC. My name is Joe Hines. I'm a Brown Heiser, whatever. I'm the only only purpose that I want to have for, making a statement at this point is to say I don't believe it's appropriate for the council to convene a public hearing. Public hearing on the license was held back in March. That was completed, and the statutes and the ordinances do not provide for any other type of public hearing relative to this liquor license. I want to express that I'm here on behalf of my clients as a special appearance. We're not consenting to any jurisdiction relative to this matter, specifically with the public hearing, but we're happy to try to provide information as it may become apparent. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to make a statement at this time? Hearing none, I will close the public hearing and move to the next thing on the agenda, which is, the new business, concerning, Rollins Retail License Number 99, and I keep thinking this is a touch screen, and it's not. Do we need a motion to discuss this, Amy?
A motion for discussion purposes only.
Okay, I would entertain that.
I guess I don't know what the motion is, just a movement for discussion. I move for open discussion on liquor license number 99.
Do I hear a second? Been a motion made and seconded to, gosh, I'm sorry. What was the word? Open discussion on liquor license number 99, Candy Mountain LLC. Would you open online voting?
We'll go to discussion now, right?
Or discussion? Oh, well, yes, I'm sorry,
That's right, this is.
my head's in the clouds. Okay, so there's been a motion made and seconded to, discuss this. Is there any discussion? And I would like to, anybody that would like to go first, feel free. Okay, I will take the lead then. The reason we're having this hearing, Mr. Heiser, is because the last time you came to a public hearing, a lot of what you told us turned out to be inaccurate. And in that public hearing, the decision was whether to or not to, give this liquor license. We were basing that decision on the information that we achieved during that public hearing. And like I said, most of it, that mattered to myself anyway, and mattered to us, seemed to be fairly inaccurate. There were, and I would hope that you can explain some of these things. The one thing that started the thing was I asked about tips training, and your testimony was that there were 3 people in that organization that had tips training before that establishment was open. When in fact, 2 of those individuals who were viewing in also at the same time, one was present in the room and one was on Zoom, did not correct you when you were off by that far. 2 of the individuals received their certification that day, and you said they received it prior to July the preceding year. And we take tips training very serious because that is the safe way to serve alcohol. Can you explain why you said that and why no one corrected you?
Sure, I'm happy to address that. First of all, I want to make a point of saying tips training is not an appropriate review for the licensing agency or this licensing authority. And I know you may disagree with me, but I'm going to tell you I don't think that's appropriate under the law to inquire about those issues. Secondly, specifically, I know you're aware that a transcript was made of this proceeding. And the transcript, I did not represent that 3 people had taken trips training. I represented that Andrea had. And I indicated in a letter that I provided to this council that I was in fact wrong when she told me that it was March. I assumed it was March before July of it coming off park. That was a mistake on my behalf. She did not get it until March of 2020. So that's an error, I take full responsibility for that, and that's information that I provided, but I also will remind this body that that's not a part of your licensing authority, and you shouldn't be inquiring into CHIPS training relative to renewal of the license.
So with TIPS training being part of our, city ordinance, that they have to have them, you think that's none of our business?
Well, no, let
Saying that-
me answer that for you, because I
Sure.
think that's really important as to
It
what's
is.
going on. Because in this system of government, we have three bodies of government. We have the legislative branch, we have the executive branch, and we have the judicial branch. And when it comes to this body, this is clearly a legislative branch. You are in a position of being able to make ordinances and to apply ordinances and to review things. You are also given by a state statute, by the legislature, the authority to be a licensing authority when it comes to liquor licenses for the municipality. That does not give you the ability to venture into the executive branch or the judicial branch. And frankly, that's my concern about this proceeding, is what you are attempting to do is have an inquiry or an inquest where you're asking people to come before you and provide information upon which you're gonna make a decision that you don't have the authority to make. And you're asking them to say, look, do you meet all the requirements of the law? An example would be when you're getting your driver's license. When you go in to get your driver's license, they have questions: how old are you? What's your eyesight? Several other things that are the administrative part of getting a driver's license. They don't ask you, have you ever sped between here and Sinclair? Have you ever made an illegal U-turn? Have you ever done anything that's a violation of the law? That's because that's not their role. Their role is to do the administrative part, to look at the license. You have a license that's required by state statute, and it's prepared by the Attorney General's office. And TIPS training is not on that application. That is the only thing that's sworn to before you, is that application, and that is what you have to review. I am here, and I tried to answer the issue relative to TIPS, and I made a mistake the first go around. I've told you about where it is now, but I'm telling you, you've got a big problem if you're going to try to be the executive branch, the prosecuting branch, the legislative branch, and the judicial branch. And you're getting in a position where you're gonna create more problems than you can actually handle.
I don't like being threatened,
I'm not threatening you, I'm just
and
telling you.
we're not here to do anything but to try to figure out for the citizens we represent.
You asked me a point-blank question, Mr. Whiteham,
That's fine.
that said, do I believe that it is inappropriate for you to inquire about TIPS? And I said, yes, it is, and I told you why. And I'm not threatening you, I'm just telling you. The answer is, that's not on your application.
Okay, but what is on the application is who owns the property and who did that, and that wasn't filled out right.
That wasn't even asked at the last hearing, and I think it's important for this body to understand that all action on a renewal application must be on evidence that was presented at that hearing. And you need to make sure that you look at the statute and you get your own legal advice. But the evidence presented at that hearing didn't bring that issue up. It wasn't addressed at that point in time. You have raised that since, and I think the other thing that's important that you need to understand is that smacks that you are receiving evidence from somewhere else, getting information from somewhere other than that hearing, because it was not discussed there. And you've got the transcript, I've got the transcript. It's never raised at that hearing. But in order to answer your question, again, which I provided a letter to you for so you can understand, the statute and the application says that no one shall hold a liquor license unless they own the building or have a lease that specifically authorizes them to serve alcohol in that particular building. In this instance, it's covered on two fronts. One is the building is owned by Shepherd Solutions LLC, and it has the exact same members as Candy Mountain, and you know that.
That doesn't matter.
I understand it doesn't
They're
matter.
two completely different entities.
I understand, please let me finish. They are the exact same people, and it does matter, and I'm gonna tell you why. The reason that it matters is the purpose of the statute and the intention of the statute is to make sure that there's not a property being used for selling alcoholic beverages without the owner's consent or permission. In this particular instance, and I provided it to your council, there's also a lease agreement in place that leases it from, Shepherd Solutions LLC to Candy Mountain LLC, and it was effective the date, at the time that the lease is there, and it's effective now. So there is no holder of a lease that does not have a valid lease for this premises.
You get this list this list here of things that were taken out of the transcript and then, some of the fact checking take place to that, and the discrepancies between what you said and what became factually true.
I did get a list, I'm not sure who prepared it. What I can tell you is clearly it comes from someplace that was not at the hearing. You're getting information from some other source that was at that hearing. And I don't know what that source is, but it's totally unfair for someone to be in a hearing and say, look, this is where the evidence is going to be heard and the information that comes in, and then not have these things presented, and then be later presented by something that said this came from a different source. Can you explain that?
So you don't, even though you misrepresented all these different things.
I don't think I misrepresented anything.
Oh, yeah, you did.
Oh, you know what the answer is? If you think that's the case, you ought to bring some type of action. Because it's improper for me to make a misrepresentation to anybody.
That's what I always thought.
So
too.
why don't you do that? Because I think, I've been through that list. That issue is for something, for this board to take up in a different way than on this liquor license. Because this liquor license is to be based on the hearing, the renewal application at that hearing, and the evidence that came before this body at that hearing. And frankly, I will tell you, you have already voted in favor of granting that liquor license. And any action now is going to be contrary to that action. And the statute specifically states the only reason upon which you can fail to renew. And none of those findings have been made. And none of those findings, frankly, are an issue. The concern in this matter is not anything relative to the liquor license. There's something else. And so my question would be, Mr. Wycombe, is why is it that you're so mad about this?
I'm not mad about nothing. You haven't even seen me mad yet.
Fair enough.
I'm not, I resent you even saying that.
You're
Mr.
telling me I
Riker.
lied to you.
You
And
did.
I'm asking, why are you so mad at me? I
You
didn't
did.
lie to you.
You did.
They
They didn't have their training before they opened.
I never told you that they all had their training before they opened. The only one that did not, the only one that I mentioned was Andrea, and I was wrong, and I told you.
So
And
that
I laid it
was
from the
incorrect,
beginning,
right?
that was incorrect.
Right. How about the sales tax license, when you were asked when was it applied for? And you kept showing us the sales tax license on the screen, and it showed that it was issued on July 1st, when in fact, it wasn't even issued until March 4th.
And you can say whatever you want about that, but I've reviewed the transcript, and all I'm saying is it was issued that day and it was effective at that time. And you're trying to make an issue, and you're trying to step this council into a position of reviewing what happens with respect to the Department of Taxation. And I'm saying again, I think you're outside your lane.
I guess we just take exception to having a public hearing, think we're gonna hear a bunch of, hard, cold facts, and we didn't, and.
You did hear
it
all the
bothered us.
facts. You did hear all the hardcore facts, and I'm happy to address any of them.
Then,
But I
let's
think,
talk
that-
about
but
the
in
sales
fairness,
tax
in
thing.
fairness, no, I told you what happened about the sales tax. What I'm telling you is that's not an issue before this council. And I told you at
But
that
you
time.
said you were willing to discuss it, so.
And I'm telling you what I told you then. The license, the sales tax license was in place during the time, all relevant times relative to this license. And there's never been an issue, and I know this council knows about having an issue when it comes to sales tax, because you've already had one where you looked at a suspension. And I don't know what happened at the last hearing. But that's the only provision under which this licensing body, as a city or town, has the authority to suspend a license. But that's not an issue, because there's not an issue.
One of the
They have not been-
requirements is having a sales tax license, and you didn't have one until March.
They had a sales tax license that was effective the day that it was. That's an issue with the Department of Taxation, not an issue with this council.
It was effective July first, okay? But
That's
during
what
the
I
time
said.
that you were saying they were selling alcohol, they didn't have a sales tax license.
They were never
Up until
suspended.
March.
They were never, the only basis that this council has to review is if there's a suspension by the Department of Revenue. That never happened.
Wasn't there a sales tax hold dated March 4th, 2021?
And that,
Correct? I mean,
Yeah,
just yes or no,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So you're saying that there was no issue with that? No.
I'm saying it got resolved.
It got
With the
resolved,
Department-
but
with the Department of Taxation.
okay, but there
And that's
was-
their role.
But there was a hold.
Oh, sure.
Okay, that's what.
Yeah, and there was an issue.
Hold on. That's what the issue was, is there was a hold, okay? And that's what was just asked, is there a hold? Was there a hold at that time? Correct?
At the time of the hearing, there was not a
No,
hold.
on March 4th, there was a hold, right?
Sure. At the time of the
Okay.
hearing, there was not a hold.
So that issue in itself can be a reasoning for a suspension, as noted, and people know that throughout the community.
I agree with
Okay.
that. That's what the law
So
says.
you can't say that wasn't an issue at that time. Sorry.
It wasn't an issue
No,
for
no.
renewal. It wasn't an issue for
Any
renewal.
gross negligent violation is a consideration of that. Of a renewal.
I'm gonna ask you, sir, tell me where the statute says that gross negligent violation is a consideration for renewal.
It's simple. It's a simple renewal process at that time, right? This council, governing body, has to take into consideration when issuing any renewal of any sales or liquor license. You can't be out there without a tips training, right? That's a violation of the ordinance.
And sir, I guess I'm disagreeing with you, and you could get your legal advice from your counsel. But I
Mayor?
don't believe appropriate the renewal
Just a minute.
process.
Thank you.
Okay, Linda?
Yes, I would like to point out something from the ordinances, 2017 adopted by the city of Rollins. 5.08, 040 talks about the responsibility or the failure to comply with any of the requirements, and that goes to the tips training. And then I would like to go to section 5.08560. Not a lawyer, I'm a layman, but I'm reading this. And it's saying that any violation of this chapter, which means 5.08, and it goes on to name manufacturer, et cetera, wholesaler, licensee, or agent thereof, is sufficient cause for the suspension and the case of gross violation, and can be reviewed by the city council. The state of Wyoming did give the authority of this body to renew liquor licenses, to handle applications, and to make sure that there is some modicum of compliance with the liquor laws as they're set out in the ordinance. And that's just what I wanted to say. As to the facts, I'm not going to debate those, but I just wanted to point that I do feel that we have some, if not some authority. And this is also granted by the state of Wyoming statute. And I did write that down, but we do have some modicum of authority to address some of the issues. Thank you.
And Ms. Smith, I don't disagree with anything that you've just said. I would like to point out that 5.08.040 states, and this is the tips part, a violation by the licensee or any failure to comply with any of the requirements, the licensee may charge, a violation by the licensee or any failure to comply with any of the requirements, the licensee may be charged with an administrative penalty not to exceed $750. That's what the ordinance says. That is
Yes.
what you have relative to tips training. I would like to go back also then and make a statement that I agree with Ms. Smith on one of the issues. And that is that this body only has the authority that's given to it by statute. And specifically, when it talks about the suspension of a license. It's important to look at the suspension of a license and the violation of the chapter. That's there. I don't disagree with that. But it's important to read that whole article, because actually what the statute says and what the ordinance is referring to is that
You're gonna go to the division, aren't you? Number G.
Well, I think it's important to look at the statute, and what the statute, what the statute does say. And so there are statutes relative to suspension, and this is what it says, 12-7-102, says, in a proceeding for revocation of a liquor license, and when the liquor licensee is found guilty of violating Wyoming Statute 12-1-101 through 12-8-301, which is all the statutes which frankly your ordinances were copied from, the district court or the division may, if it appears advisable, proceed to revoke, suspend the license for a period not to exceed the balance of the term for which the license was issued. And the suspension shall not of itself disqualify the licensee for renewal at the end of the term. That's one statute, but again, it's important to realize that that's in the course of a revocation proceeding. The next statute is 12-7-103 that talks about suspension of a license by licensing authorities, which is the only position that you have. You are not the AG's office, and you are not the division. You are a licensing authority. A local licensing authority may suspend any license issued under this title if the licensee fails to pay sales tax and the division has ceased sales of alcoholic liquor to the licensee pursuant to Wyoming Statute 12-2-306. And again, that's the provision that you were looking at exactly. And the answer is yes. In that circumstance, if the division has ceased sales of alcoholic beverages, then the licensing authority, which is you, can suspend that license. The one that's important to understand is 12-7-201 that says an action to revoke any Wyoming liquor license or permit may be brought in the name of the state of Wyoming by the Attorney General, any county attorney, or licensing authority for the reason that the licensee or permittee has violated this title. Actions to revoke licenses are civil actions and shall be tried before the court without a jury. That's the district court. And to some extent, that's the part that I need to try to explain to you. That's part of what I'm saying is this is not a place to try the issue of whether or not there were violations. That is a action that needs to be brought in district court.
So you'd rather go to district court than answer our questions?
I'm happy to answer your questions. That's why I'm here tonight, Mr. Wyckoff. I'm here tonight to try to answer your
It
questions.
doesn't sound like that. It just, we keep ending up in district court, and
Part of what I'm saying is there's a reason that there's some difficulty with some of your questions. Because you're asking questions that aren't in the scope of the application. And the questions and the issues that relate to those would be more appropriate in a revocation hearing. I am here to try to avoid that, because I don't think there's any basis for that either. And I've tried to explain to you what has transpired. I've tried to explain to you the problem with the TIPS training, and that was my fault. The only one I represented that I thought had TIPS training was Andrea. But in any event, what I'm saying, and again, I'm trying to get you to make sure that you hear me. What I'm saying is, yes, that was something that happened, and for that I apologize. But that's not an issue on the application for renewal. Councilman Durst?
So, I guess I just, small reminder that all of this started with the annual renewals when the sales tax hold was placed on your client. So just as a reminder, that's where all of this originally started, was with the annual renewal, and the sales tax hold was put on there. I'm gonna be honest, I think at this point, I'm not sure that there's really much more of a road to go down, but I just wanna share my opinions because of the fact that I guess we have the right to do so. I think it's, in my opinion, this is speaking for me and me alone, I think it's pretty obvious that basically what happened was we went in and found out that we had a sales tax hold because we never paid any sales tax. Wanted to get it on, so then we went back and paid the past due, got caught up, and in the end, I think that it's gonna be legal technicalities that's going to keep this all going, and that this is all gonna go forward just normal, but I think it's really important moving forward that, you know, I think had the clients just come in and said, you know what, we made some mistakes, we figured out that we made these mistakes, we did to correct it, I think all of this would have gone a whole lot different than trying to come in and obviously change the facts of what had happened. Clearly, we backdated the sales tax and all of that kind of stuff. I get it, the state of Wyoming allowed it, so be it, there's nothing I can do about that, I agree with you. But I do think that it's very important for everybody to understand that, you know, we take this seriously. I mean, the point of us being the licensing authority is so that people aren't just selling booze out there willy-nilly. The point of TIPS training is so that people are selling alcohol safely and responsibly to adults who are legally
Let me say something. In the last meeting, you guys
I'm sorry,
said,
hold on just a second.
okay, I'll go after you. Go ahead.
So with that, like I say, I really don't have anything other to say that I think it's pretty obvious what happened. I think the legal technicalities are gonna prevail, so be it. But I think moving forward, I think it's very, very important that everybody really focuses on what needs to be done and does it absolutely by the letter and by the law from here forward.
And Mr. Durst, I couldn't agree with you more, although I do want to tell you that there is a different explanation, although, and again, this may be my legal training being in the way. What I was attempting to let you know at the last hearing is that's not an issue, and frankly, I'm gonna tell you, this is not the right forum to get into everything that happened, but I'm gonna tell you that what happened and what transpired was that an application was sent. You might remember, around that time, we were in the middle of lockdown and a whole bunch of weird things. But according to Andrea, that application was sent off together with the check, and that information was subsequently found, however, it had never been processed. But in any event, we kind of got that dealt with and said, look, let's just get it processed, let's get it now dealt with the Department of Taxation, got it all taken care of, got that squared away, and frankly, that's, again, another licensing authority that we have to deal with, and so we dealt with them and got to a position where they were satisfied. And I guess what I'm saying, that was the appropriate part, that was the information that I provided to you, is that sales tax hold was not in place any longer, that the license was there. To some extent, you know, I think you're right, the background story really doesn't matter, but I'm telling you, my understanding is that the application was intended to be sent off, had been prepared and checked, sent, but somehow it didn't get processed or taken care of. Now that has been addressed, and it is my client's intention at every step moving forward to meet every obligation that is required, both in the operation, but for this body's purpose, in the renewal application. And I didn't get to mention that before. You know, sometimes people do make mistakes, and when you know, something is, the question really is it something that was intentional, or is it something that sometimes happens? And the other part is, what is the ramification of that mistake? And so the answer is, when that application was filled out on the check the box as to whether it's owned or leased, a mistake was made. Technically, I agree with you, it's leased, but it was owned by them. I mean, if I got $10 and it's in my right pocket, it's not any less owned by me than if it's in my left pocket. And so that type of mistake was made. And I know you don't like any of this stuff that I'm saying.
Well, when you're talking about incorporations, and different incorporations that owned by the same people, that's different. You can't convince me that two corporations that are owned by the same person are the same person. They're not. That's why you incorporate, is so that you have a complete separation. So when you say they're owned by the same person, they're not. Even though the same people own the same companies,
And
but they're
I'm
not.
I'm not
So
disagreeing with
it's a
you, I'm not trying to
technical
quibble
thing.
with that.
It's not a technical thing, or it's not
I agree.
it's not open for discussion. That's why you incorporate. Otherwise, you wouldn't incorporate.
But, and these aren't corporations, they are limited liability.
If partnerships are no different.
Well, it is a little bit different, but I don't want to quibble with that. What I really am saying, though, is it wasn't a circumstance where somebody was making use of somebody else's property without their knowledge. That's what the statute was designed to prevent. There was a mistake made. It won't be made again. The lease has been provided, that will be on file and will continue to be, now it'll be checked and say it's leased, the lease is on file. All I can say is my clients have been fully informed on that, and that won't happen again. The good part is, I don't think there was anybody that was injured, there wasn't anybody whose property was used that didn't consent to it being used. That's really all I'm trying to say.
Yeah, but intentions have nothing.
I just remember Devin had a.
Devin, you had something? to
Yeah,
say?
your words, Mr. Wycombe, last time you said, when there's a problem, fix it. So we're here and we're trying to fix it. So help us.
Well, if you tell us the truth, we will help you.
We have told you the truth, Mr. Terry. Thank you. We're here telling you the truth and we're trying to fix it.
Councilman.
Amy, I've got a question for you. Just to clear up something. I'm under the impression that this meeting isn't about, going back on the renewal of the license, but this meeting is for the new findings that have been presented to us after we renewed the license. So the sales tax issue was investigated by the staff, and in doing so, they found other issues, and that is why we're having this meeting, is to decide whether or not we should suspend the license or how we move forward with the current license. This isn't.
You haven't been presented with any violations or investigations or findings. That's where this, if you're bringing forward, those allegations, you would have staff present their investigation, their violations investigation.
Is this not the information that we have in this document, is it not, usable for this meeting? That's what we're reading from.
I would defer to staff on it. They present the enforcement side. They present what the alleged violations are, what their investigation was, and what their findings are to you.
What do you think, Mr. Heiser, we should happen here? What should we do? We know that they're guilty of tips violation stuff, because you've said it, they've said it, everybody said it. What should we do from here forward? I'm just gonna ask you, what do you think?
I think that's fair. I think the issue, is we have a renewal of the license. That has been done. That was accomplished after the hearing, as you said, based on the evidence presented at that hearing. Then the issue really is has there been a violation? And if there has been a violation, then the proper procedure for that is to have the executive branch bring some type of charge, that's the potential fee or whatever the statute or the ordinance calls for, and then have that matter proceed through court. And that would be how that matter works. So I guess that's the part that I'm telling you that is a bit of a challenge and why
I'll let go.
it'd be a little bit difficult to answer some of the questions that you have here, because this isn't the proceeding in which a determination is made relative to a violation. And I will also point out, and I think it's true, and I appreciate Ms. Bach making the amendment to the agenda. I think that was appropriate because, again, we're not looking at violations. I will say the notice is still outstanding, which tends to say that you were going to be looking at violations. But that's my big concern, is this is not the body to be looking at violations. That is to be done through the executive branch and the judicial branch. Then, if there's a conviction and somebody else is standing as the arbiter of that fact or the judge of that fact, if there's a conviction, then that conviction can be brought back to you in the renewal application process and to ascertain whether or not there's been a gross
guess what I'm saying is, I think the process works well. I think it can work well. I think the circumstance that we have here is there's an inquiry into matters that were outside the scope of the renewal application. There were some concerns about the responses that were given to those, maybe on my behalf, because I knew they were outside of the renewal application process. And so there became some tension with that.
Sorry, repeat that again, what you just said?
What I just said?
Yeah, just said, please.
I said, when we had the other hearing, there were some issues that came up that were outside the renewal process, which I responded to both at the hearing and in 2 letters that I sent to you. And part of what I'm saying is not saying that it's not important. I'm saying that that's not part of the renewal process, not where this body should sit as the arbitrator or the judge of those facts. Those facts should be, if there's violations, brought before a court.
Or the judge, but you can.
No, you're not the judge. You're not the judge.
Omission by deception still omission, or,
No.
deception by omission still deception, and
And
on
I
the
just
sales
agree.
tax license thing, you made that about as confusing as anybody could possibly be. And when you were asked several times, when was it applied for,
I referred to when it was issued.
you referred to when it was backdated to.
Right, agreed,
Backdated.
agreed, because for the
But there's
purposes of the
a
license.
huge, there's a difference.
No, I don't believe there is.
Yeah, there's
Between
8 months
you and me.
difference, there's 8 months difference. They
Between-
applied for it here, but they backdated it by 8 months.
Between you and me, there's
So
a
when you
difference.
say, when did you apply for it, and you say 8 months ago,
I never
That's
said,
not
I
true.
never said that they applied for it 8 months ago. That's never in the transcript. What I said, it is effective that
you
day.
said, you said this is the date, and you pointed at, thing
I
on
said
the
the
screen
date
that
that
said
it's
July
effective.
first.
I said the date that it's effective.
Well, that was slick.
There was a problem, we fixed it.
That is, the issue with that is that is not a relevant application question. The question is do you have one or do you don't?
Well, I can tell
We
you
do.
by the answers that we got, and then what we found out
Outside the hearing.
does not build trust at all. It just doesn't. And I guess if that don't matter to you, I guess it doesn't matter.
Well, it does matter.
But it does
And that's-
matter to me, because I wanna know that if there's alcohol sales going on in our town, that it's done according to the current rules and regulations, and that was what we were tasked with, and we had a hearing, and some of the information that was given to us was tremendously misleading. And it's too bad that, it's just too bad that there was, like Councilman Durr said, it's just too bad somebody didn't come in and say, hey, look, we screwed up, we got a problem, we're fixing it, this, that, and the other. Instead, it's like, oh, look at this, oh, look at that. Yeah, you backdated it, but you didn't say when you applied for it. You said you had tip string, and you didn't have tip string. You said you had a fully functional, and you did say this, you have a fully functional dispensing room, when in fact you don't. It is limited to package only because you don't have wash sinks, you don't have this, that, and the other. So after hearing everything that you said during that hearing, that we're supposed to decide whether you're to get a license or not, we find out that a lot of that is not accurate. It doesn't make us trust you, I'm just telling you.
Well, you brought up something there that I also need to address. And that is that you say, when you say that we don't have a functioning dispensing room, you then refer to the bar issues. And there's not a requirement that there be a bar.
No, I don't think so either.
So there could be.
No, I don't think so either. I just don't
So
think
I
you
don't
should say you have one when you don't.
I said we had a fully operational dispensing room. I didn't say it was a bar.
But you don't have a fully operational dispensing room. You have a packaged liquor store.
You and I are gonna quibble then over what the dispensing room is, because the dispensing room for packaged liquor is not any different than the dispensing room for a bar.
Yes, it is. You have to have dish sinks, wash sinks, different restrooms, everything.
You and I are gonna disagree on that.
Okay.
But, and we've never represented that there's a bar there. And so I don't think that that's ever been the case.
What's a dispensing room?
I think the statute defines a dispensing room.
Is a dispensing room what?
Well, let's.
Packaged liquor, or is it, where they
Well,
dispense
and
alcohol.
I need to let you know, the application in this is for a retail liquor license. A retail liquor license can include a bar and it can include packaged liquor. There's not a distinction between the two. And if you give me a minute, I'll be happy to see if I can find it.
No, you don't have to, I'm just saying, you said you had a fully functioning dispensing room, and in fact, you didn't, and all these things add up, you know, to, what were we told? It was a hearing, we were trying to decide whether to give you this license or not, and I just don't have a lot of confidence in our decision.
Well, I suspect that there is a definition of dispensing room, but I'm not finding it right away.
It's irrelevant.
And Mr. White, I agree with you. I think it is largely irrelevant.
Anybody got anything else they'd like to ask or say?
I don't consider my piece.
Darrell? Okay, thank you.
Well, I would like to say just one other thing. I hope that you've had a chance to look at both letters that I have written, and you have a chance to understand where I'm coming from, in that regard. And I'm not saying that this council is not validly elected, and that they're not a proper licensing authority. But there are circumstances that the highest demarcation of being able to be honorable is to have the ability to not wade into something where you're not supposed to be. And that's part of the issue that we've had here, is I have often felt that you were asking questions about things that aren't part of the renewal application. And to the extent that I then said, look, here's the information that I think meets the criteria of your answer, that's the reason I gave you that information, because that was appropriate for the inquiry. I know, Mr. Wycombe, that you're really upset by that. I'm just trying to explain why I did what I did. Because again, in this process, and that's the part that you have to understand, a public hearing, you are asking somebody to come in, and you are saying, look, I'm gonna ask you a whole bunch of questions, and it's gonna be out on Facebook, and it's gonna be on the radio, and it's gonna be all this places. And I'm just gonna be able to ask whatever I want. And that's not how it works. The information should be tailored to meet the purpose of the objective. And it shouldn't be a free-for-all. It's not a place where you put people in stocks and whip them because they aren't doing it the way you want to. What really should happen is there should be a cooperation between those who have your licenses and the renewal process. And sometimes mistakes are gonna be made on both sides. And I'm not trying to point my fingers at anybody. But the reality is this was not done smoothly by either side. And there's been a lot of attempts. I have tried very hard to speak with your council about what's going on and try to avoid having the confrontation that may be inevitable. But in all instances, my clients want to comply with the law, and they want to comply with the liquor authority and the licensing authority, and want to do everything they can in that regard. They have hired me to come in here and be their spokesman, frankly, because two reasons. One, they're an entity, and two, nobody wants to be drugged through this.
We don't, that's for sure.
I understand, nor do we.
This has not been fun for us either.
Yeah, I'm not saying.
You know, we haven't put, just for correction, no one has been whipped and put in stocks. That's a huge exaggeration.
And I didn't say
Just so
that
you
you
know.
have been, I said it's the equivalent of doing that.
Okay, nobody
And frankly, you
came
have
even
done the
close
same
to
thing.
putting somebody in
You have
stocks.
called me a liar right here.
Well,
I know you think that those are misrepresentations, I'm telling you, they're factually based.
I'm not a lawyer,
You're not
so
a
I
lawyer.
look at it differently than you,
Yeah,
but when
that's
you say something that the facts don't back up, I look at it one way. You as a lawyer might look at it another, but I look at that as deception, or untruth,
I look
or,
at giving you the
there's
information.
a lot of different
There's not
words.
anything that's false. The only thing that was false that I said, and I admit that, was I said that Andrea got it in March of 2020, and I was wrong. That was March of 2021. That is my fault. I take full responsibility for that.
Why didn't your client sitting in this room say, excuse me, it would have helped a little
And maybe it would have by the same token.
Because
They
I
have
think
hired
I
me
wondered
to
if
do
you're
something.
intentionally doing it or not, but
They-
when you
they've
say
hired
that
me to
it's
do
not
something.
corrected,
They've
it
hired,
seemed
they've
intentional.
hired me to do something, and I presented that information. You know, to some extent, part of the question is, I think if it would have been a misrepresentation relative to something in the application on the sworn portion of it, then I think you would be exactly right. But this was in an area that wasn't in the application. It was an area that, I made a mistake on. They aren't sophisticated in the law. I am. I am the one that said that this is a mistake now, because it was my mistake. But at the time, and I know you wouldn't have been satisfied, but at the time, it would have been fair for me to say, tips training is irrelevant at this point. Because it's not part of the application. I didn't want to do that. I wanted
It is
to work
part
with
of
the
the ordinance, so,
I made a
sir.
mistake. It is part of the ordinance. I
And so
agree.
we expect people to go by our ordinances,
And I agree
whether
with that.
you like
should.
it or not.
You should expect people to go by your ordinances. All I'm really saying is, that's not the role of the renewal of its licensing authority. That's the role of the enforcement arm of the government. And there's a basis to do that, and there's a procedure to do that, and there's an appropriate way to do that. It's not in a public hearing on a renewal application. Be happy to answer any other questions you may have. We're done. Well, thank you very much, for your time, and I, would ask that you, give this the consideration it's worth, recognize where people are, where humans are. I'm trying to do that on my side too. Thank you very much.
All right. Next thing on our agenda is, no,
No, we just opened it for discussion. Oh, okay. Thank you, sorry, Terry.
So there's nothing to close that out or anything?
Not unless you wanna take action.
we don't have to now, we can do it later. All right, the next thing on our agenda is an executive session, and I would entertain a motion for that. Vice Mayor Wells?
I move to go into executive session at 6:50 PM per two dots. I think that's two. Consider the appointment, right to practice or dismissal of a public officer, professional person or employee, or to hear complaints or charge brought against an employee, professional person or officer, unless the employee, professional person or officer requests a public hearing. The governing body may exclude from any public or private hearing during the examination of a witness, any or all other witnesses in the matter being investigated. Following the hearing or executive session, the governing body may deliberate on its decision in executive session.
There's been a motion made and seconded to go into executive session at 6:50 PM, to consider the, appointment, employment, right to practice or dismissal of a public officer, professional person or employee, or to hear complaints or charges brought against an employee, professional person or officer. Unless the employee, professional person or officer requests a public hearing, the governing body may exclude from any public or private hearing during the examination of a witness, and or all witnesses in the matter being investigated. Following the hearing or executive session, the governing body may deliberate on its decision in executive session. Any discussion? Please open online voting.
You forgot the time.
It was 6:50.
I said the time, Linda, so.
Oh, thank you. I didn't hear it. I'm sorry.
Okay, I'm gonna need to take a voice vote, I can't
Okay.
get this thing.
That's
All
fine.
right. So sorry. Mayor Terry Wycombe?
Present?
Is it? Okay.
Or yes?
Oh, dear.
Present. Kind of.
Vice Mayor Jacqueline Wells? Yes. Councilmember Aaron Durst?
Yes.
Councilmember Linda Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Chris, Weisenberg?
Yes.
Councilmember Darrell Gardner?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we do have to call Linda from that
and I just want the council to start with.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next door,
where are we going down?
I don't know